In 2K, upgrading your MyPLAYER used to be simple. You play games, earn skill points or VC, and slowly upgrade your guy until he's a beast. But over the years, the grind has transformed into a mix of hidden challenges, insane VC prices, and exploits that just straight up break the game. Today we're going from 2K10 all the way to 2K25 to see exactly how the MyCareer grind has evolved, and how it went from a skill-based journey into a pay-to-win system where your wallet matters a lot more than your wins. First up, we got 2K10, and this is where it all started. That's because this is the first year that 2K introduced a MyPLAYER mode. There was no VC, no microtransactions, and no flashy stores trying to sell you a hoodie before you can even afford a layup package. And in this game, the grind began in the draft combine, and that's only if you paid $5 to get the DLC. But you'd participate in drills, scrimmages, and mini games to prove yourself for the NBA draft. Your performance in those drills and scrimmages gave you something called skill points. This is before VC, and it also determined your draft stock. Ball out in the combine and you'll go higher in the draft. If you struggle, you'll end up in something that we now know as the G League, which was formerly called the D League at the time. Once you were drafted, the real grind began. You earned skill points by playing NBA games, but you got them so slowly. And the worst part of all, you started a 40 overall.
He needs some milk.
The good part though, you can instantly spend skill points on any attribute you wanted. No caps. Want a 99 three-pointer before you can even dunk? Go for it. There were no caps, no restrictions. Upgrade whatever the hell you want. You also had limited training drills each week that gave bonus skill points, so you had to be strategic about how you used them each week. The crazy part about this though, everything was offline. No online park, no VC shortcuts. If you wanted to be great, you had to put in the hours by yourself. And that leads us into 2K11, what some people still consider the best 2K ever. As far as MyPLAYER in 2K11, they kept the grind alive with the summer circuit, which was a proving ground after the draft combine where your MyPLAYER had to battle for a roster spot. You played against prospects in summer league style games, and your performance there, you shaped your draft stock heading into the NBA. But this game was not remembered for the MyPLAYER mode, it was remembered for crew mode. And this is where things got ridiculous. People were modding MyPLAYERs to be 7 foot and 11 inches with max wingspan, max stats, and glitchy animations. And to be clear, they didn't just randomly choose 7 foot 11. So if you made your player 8 foot tall, he would dunk, disappear, and the game would freeze. I mean, you could have gotten away with it as long as your player doesn't dunk, but if he does, GG. And it didn't just stop at 7 foot 11 players. You had crazy mods, like a 25 foot tall SpongeBob SquarePants. Every time you shot, it was goaltending or a block. It was ridiculous. And it wasn't just giants. People would mod celebrity players like Drake and Snoop Dogg, or NBA legends like Michael Jordan, Shaq, and Magic Johnson. My favorite was Magic Johnson. Blacktop Online also existed. You were just lagging your ass off the whole time, basically. So this is the first year that you could take your MyPLAYER online, although the grind still happened in MyCareer because you couldn't even earn any skill points online for those games. And that leads us to the buzzkill, 2K12. They completely removed crew mode. To make things worse, they also got rid of that blacktop mode I was referring to where you could play online. I honestly don't know what they were thinking this year. So you basically were just playing MyCareer for the fun of the game. You couldn't even bring your guy online. But of course, it's 2K, so people still played MyCareer. You grind skill points against the CPU game after game with nothing to break up the repetition. Just the same thing over and over again. Without crew, there was no big competitive online space for MyPLAYER, and the grind just felt kind of hopeless. One thing that was actually pretty fun in 2K12 was online league. That leads us into the year that changed everything for 2K. VC was born. Virtual currency replaced skill points in this game, meaning microtransactions existed, and for the first time ever, you could use real money to upgrade your MyPLAYER and buy signature skills, also known as badges. You could still earn VC by playing, but the amounts were small. The grind became longer unless you were willing to pay. Thankfully though, they did have a VC glitch in this game where you save and quit a 12-minute quarter game in the last seconds, and then you would just load into it every 15 minutes and make like 3K. That came in clutch, especially if you played my team. Overall, 2K13 was the first step in the pay to progress process that we now know today. And that leads us to 2K14. And we're gonna focus just on the next gen because current gen, they literally just copy and pasted 2K13. And the only reason it's okay in this instance is because next gen looked insane. It was the first year that players could go through MyCareer with cutscenes, which at the time was awesome. It made the grind feel a lot less painful, and it made MyCareer so much more fun. This is also the first year that they added the park, although it looked a lot different than what we know today. It was just a basic park that honestly broke all the time because the server sucked. You'd press A to get on the got next, and it would take 10 minutes to get on it. When the games actually started, they were pretty fun, although this really wasn't the best. It was cool that you could bring your MyPLAYER online though, but this game was an absolute game changer. Suddenly, the grind wasn't just about offline games. games. You could flex your progress in a social space now. That being said, the VC earnings still were not great, and they did not keep up with the demand for upgrades. As well as that, the VC you earned online was significantly less than MyCareer. So most people just went back to MyCareer and grinded until they were a 99, then went online. 2K14 Next Gen, you could still upgrade your signature skills, which are badges now. You could just buy them with VC. You had like 10 slots and you just bought whatever ones you wanted. And this game, just like 2K13 introduced, you buy clothes with VC. Little did we know this great ad was going to turn so downhill in today's games. And that brings us to 2K15. This is the year that badges were introduced, but you couldn't buy them anymore. They became a grind of their own this year. The thing about the badges, there was no progression bar, and the game did not track the progress for you. You just saw it pop up whenever you completed it. So if you needed 15 posterized dunks to get posterizer on bronze, when you saw that pop up, that was one of the most rewarding feelings in all of 2K. Want Dimer? That's 1,000 assists in a season for gold. Didn't know how far along you were? Too bad. You just played the game until the badge popped up. And let me tell you, it was such a relief and a rewarding feeling when that thing finally popped up. The thing that sucked about this game though, you couldn't earn badge progress online. And that sucked because Park and Rec were so much fun in this game. But in order to get to those modes, you had to go in MyCareer, get your guy to a respectable overall, then take him online. Because if you played this game without badges, you were expecting to lose. And Rebirth, I've never heard of her. She didn't even exist yet. Every single new build, you just had to grind their badges as well. Then came the biggest glitch in 2K history, the Demigod glitch. This absolutely broke the game and made you feel stupid if you grinded your player at all. You can now glitch the game, not have to grind at all, get every single badge at max height, max wingspan, and 99 everything. In the park, this was absolute chaos, and it's still one of the most infamous eras in 2K history. You honestly just had to be there. And that brings us into 2K16. And this year, the 2K MyCareer grind started with choosing your archetype, and they only had 3 to choose from. They were inside, outside, and balanced. This year, to reach new caps for your MyPLAYER, you had to do practices, which were done in between games.
Guys, huddle up. We're gonna run 35 for a while. Oh.
And this year, I remember there was an attribute glitch where you close app right after the practice and it would still count your upgrade and you could just rinse and repeat. As you can tell in this era, 2K had a lot of glitch problems. That being said, Park and Rep were at their peak. 2K added something called Park cards. They were a one-time boost that you could activate in the game for extra speed, better shooting, or any other attribute upgrades. But they were insane. This was a cool ad in the game. It was kind of cheese, but it made the game fun. The good thing though, they did not transfer to Rec Center. This was a park only thing. That being said though, the grind this year was still fair enough to do without spending, and the community was thriving. That leads us into 2K17, which was the final year of the classic 2K that we all know and used to love. That was before microtransactions took over and gave us the games that we know and hate today. In this year's MyCareer, Grand Badges gave your archetype a super mode once you got hot in games, adding another goal to the grind. And let me tell you, Grand Badges went insane. If you had the sharpshooter one, you could pull it from damn near half court. And this game also had park badges, and they kind of gave it a little facelift because there were so many more park badges. But that being said, you still could not get actual badge progress unless you played MyCareer. But the good thing about that is MyCareer was fun. You had orange juice with Michael B. Jordan, so the grind really didn't feel that terrible at all. Nowadays, it's crazy to think that you could actually play MyCareer back then and have fun. And in this game, the VC prices were rising, but the grind was very much still doable without paying. And this year, unfortunately, was the year that they replaced Rec Center with Pro-Am. A typical head-scratching moment where you're like, why did you do that, 2K? But that's what they decided to do. That being said, though, people still remember this game being one of the last great 2Ks, right before everything started to go downhill. Speaking about downhill, that brings us to 2K18, what many refer to as the downfall of 2K. 2K18 completely changed the MyCareer grind. In this game, they introduced Road to 99, which made your rep and overall now tied together, which a lot of people didn't like. But this year, they also added cap breakers, meaning you can only upgrade certain attributes until you level up to the next Road to 99 level. This year, they finally added where you could get badge progress online, and it even had a progression bar now. Although it had a progression bar, it didn't matter because nobody was playing the game. On top of all of that, the badge progress online was so much slower than doing it offline. So why even add it in the first place? And what made things even worse is now we had the neighborhood. So VC VC prices skyrocketed. I mean, you couldn't even go to the barber shop without spending 5 grand on a freaking haircut, something that was free in the previous games. And upgrading your guy, it felt like it was impossible to not spend money. And that is exactly why people think that this year ruined 2K, because you now had to spend money in order to stay competitive. And I mean, it was still possible offline, but you basically had to play MyCareer like it was your full-time job. And that leads us to 2K19. 2K19 tried to refine the grind, but it ended up doubling down on everything that made it feel like a second job. The neighborhood was redesigned with a fresh layout, stores, courts, events, and mini games, all packed into one neighborhood. On the surface, it looked new, but the grind underneath did not change very much at all. Progression was still locked behind cap breakers, meaning your attributes couldn't go up until you hit specific milestones, which stretched out the Road to 99 system from 2K18 that nobody really even liked. And that was because it once again ties your overall to your player progression. And badges, they worked exactly the same too. You can earn them online, but you would get them at a significantly slower rate than you would playing offline MyCareer. Want Hall of Fame limitless range? Better start chucking deep threes in MyCareer. On top of that, VC prices didn't get any cheaper. In fact, they kept climbing. MyPLAYER clothes, animations, and boosts were now all expensive, and earning VC never kept up with the prices. It pushed players to now grind endlessly or start bringing out their wallet and spending some money. Events like Dime Time, Ruffles, and Rebirth all gave a variety to the grind, but they were scheduled, limited time, and often plagued by server issues. And if you didn't log on during the event time, you missed your chance. Like I said though, this was the first year that they added Rebirth. It allowed players to create new builds with a significant head start on their badge progress and overall rating. But the 2K19 grind did have some bright spots. Takeover was introduced, giving players a unique boost when they got hot, and it added a new layer of strategy. And the cages courts were so much fun and gave Park a goofy twist with trampolines and crazy dunks. Still, for most players, 2K19 was when the grind tipped over into being more of a work than fun. You weren't just hooping anymore, you were clocking into a second job. And that brings us into 2K20, when people somewhat started to enjoy the game again. As far as the MyCareer grind, the biggest change this year was the new badge progression system. Instead of just earning upgrades through milestones, every single action in a game gave badge XP towards specific categories, whether it was finishing, shooting, playmaking, or defense and rebounding. As always, people were looking up fastest ways to get certain badges, whether it was running 12-minute quarter games on Hall of Fame, spamming pick and roll alley-oops for playmaking XP, or just not playing defense at all, and calling for the ball on the other side of the court so you could get some shooting XP. And once again this year, MyCareer was the most efficient way to grind, which meant repetitive AI farming just to unlock Hall of Fame badges. Park and Rec again gave some progress, but nowhere near the same speed as MyCareer. So most players before playing online would just go offline and blow out the CPU until their guy was ready to play online. Meanwhile, the VC prices stayed brutal. Attribute upgrades, clothes, animations, boosts, and Gatorade all ate up your wallet. Grinding VC in MyCareer was slow as always, and endorsement payouts just were not enough to keep up. The 2K economy basically forced players to use their wallet if they wanted to stay competitive online. This year, the neighborhood also returned back with new events, but server issues often ruined these events and they were only available for certain time frames. So missing events because of the server was pretty common in these days. This year, the MyCareer grind was also affected by the new pie chart build system. You would choose a certain skill distribution pie, like shooting, playmaking, or defense rebounding, that shaped your attributes and badge potential. This gave variety, but it also made builds heavily specialized. For many, it was the year of repetition. They copied the same neighborhood, and the game felt more like a grind. 2K20 was beloved by some, but for most players, they played the game until they burnt out on their way to 99. That brings us into 2K21. This year had a current gen and a next gen. Current gen had the return of pie charts and a very similar grind to 2K20. 2K21 next gen had a brand new builder. The next gen builder was a massive shift. Instead of pie charts, you had full attribute control. You could freely assign attribute points within caps, and your choices would determine badge availability. It gave you way more creative builds, but the grind was still just as brutal. And a growing theme here, VC prices stayed at a high premium. It would cost close to 200k VC or $50 just to get your guy to an 85. And that was just attributes, not animations, boosts, or clothes. Absolutely ridiculous. This year on Next Gen, Rep returned to the city where they also had affiliations, but it just wasn't the same anymore. The affiliations did not feel special anymore, and the grind just was not worth it. The rewards just didn't make sense. And in order to reach those goals, you had to spend hours in Parker Rec. But overall, 2K21 MyCareer grind basically started when you pulled out your wallet. And unfortunately this year, after you paid to get your guy, you probably didn't play the game very much because it sucked. And that's going to lead us into 2K22. This year was interesting because a lot of people were actually on the game and enjoying it until 2 weeks in when they decided to come out with a patch and it killed the game. But in 2K22, they completely reshaped the MyCareer grind with seasons. And for the first time, your player's progression felt tied to a timed system instead of just raw hours played. As far as maxing your guy out, it was very similar to 2K21 because it still cost around 200,000 VC. Unless you bought a VC bundle, you were stuck grinding through MyCareer games. And the earning rates still were not generous at all. About 500 to 700 VC per game, depending on your performance. This meant hundreds of games were required for your guy to be even near being max rating. And badge grinding in 2K22 was the job of its own. Shooting badges forced you to spam threes in MyCareer. Finishing badges required constant rim running. Playmaking badges again forced you to just spam pick and roll alley-oops. And unless you got super lucky, defensive badges took forever. This game also had the legend grind where you had to grind level 40 in 4 different seasons. And I don't know how you feel about the season pass, but I think it's ridiculous. Like, why the hell is there a battle pass in a basketball game? In a nutshell, 2K22 was very similar to 2K21 as far as a MyCareer grind plus seasons, and people were completely fine with it until they patched the game and ruined it. And that's going to bring us to 2K23. 23 looked like it was going to fix the grind, but for a lot of people, it made it worse. The VC grind was at its most punishing point yet. It still cost around 200,000 to max out your guy, but the earning rates were still as bad as 2K21 and 22. You were still only getting about 500 to 800 VC per game depending on the difficulty. On top of that, attributes were locked down harder than ever. You couldn't simply max out your strengths. Every build came with strict caps based on height, wingspan, and archetype. When it comes to badges in this game, the main change here was the core badges. Once you completed certain requirements for a badge, you could core it and equip it for free, saving the badge points for other categories. Sounds good, right? Except the fact that the grind to unlock the core badges was brutal. Each badge had hidden requirements you had to hit over and over again. And once again, you had no idea how much progress you were getting towards making it a core badge because the progress was invisible. And seasons unfortunately came back from 22, but in 23, they doubled down. And the rewards were not just cosmetics. Some gave extra badge points or attribute boosts, which meant if you skipped a season, you literally missed a progression tool that made the grinding easier. Overall, 2K23 made the grind feel like the slowest it had ever been. Between insane VC costs, invisible core badge requirements, and seasonal progression, MyCareer became a game of patience. Unless you spent money, most people didn't even finish their first build because everyone found the meta builds. So every game you were seeing the exact same builds, which really made this game feel unplayable. And that's going to bring us to 2K24. This year, 2K decided to bring back one of the worst features in franchise history, and that feature was badge regression. This meant if you played online and you had a ball hog point guard and rec, because you weren't using your badges that game, they would go down. It made no sense. And you're probably asking, did VC prices go down? Hell no. Still the same old 200k to fully max out a build. The difference this year was, now the meta builds changed faster than ever. So by the time you finally max one of these builds out, the next meta build is probably taking over. And that obviously forced people to pull their wallet back out. If the badge system was reworked again, you could still grind badges by playing, but here's the problem. If you didn't actively use a badge, it regressed. And again, the seasons return, giving an advantage to the people who are playing the game all day and able to hit level 40 every season, leaving those who don't in the dust. 2K24's grind felt like a treadmill that never stopped. You were basically running in place. So now, unless you were willing to pay and no-life the game, keeping your build competitive was nearly impossible. And that brings us to the current trash can, 2K25, which is basically a ghost town now. I mean, there's a reason you see this game on sale every other week. And this year, the grind was more expensive, more punishing, and more confusing than ever. This year, the VC inflation was at its peak. The cost to max out a build in 2K25 was at an all-time high, around 250,000 just to get to an 85 overall. That's almost as much as the base game itself costs. Absolutely ridiculous. And this game, it's almost like 2K was constantly trying to make the meta shift. They did this with new patches, adding new moves, new jumpers, so most players can't get by with just one build, which means either grind for months or swipe the card. And like I said, I feel like 2K has intentionally gotten to the point where they want to shift the meta in order for you to bring out your wallet and buy more VC to upgrade new builds. And if this wasn't true, they wouldn't have changed the rebirth to where you can get a 99 overall player off rip if you already did it once. With that being said, I'm sure they're doing great business-wise, because this year you could have spent $100 per build and get them to a 99 with damn near max badges. So it's smart on their part, because they know people are going to just swipe their card and max out new builds immediately. And the thing that really sucks is this really was never a thing until 2K18. So those of us who played prior to 2K18 still remember when MyCareer wasn't just pulling out your wallet and buying a new build. So that's the full journey from 2K10, where it's all about skill points and time on the game, to 2K25, where the grind is a mix of hidden challenges, patch-driven metas, and an economy that pushes players towards spending. The question is, did the grind get better, or did it just get more expensive? Let me know in the comments what your guys' thoughts are on where the MyCareer grind has gone and where we are today. For me, I think around 2K15 to 2K17 was the perfect balance. But that's going to be all for me. Thanks once again for all the support. Love all you guys, and stay saucy.
Ever since I can remember, I've been popping my collar.